Welcome inside the voice of college football. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. I am your host, Austin Robbie. Man, another close game, another game we've got a lead on and let it go. We just played Auburn this past weekend, ultimately lost that football game 33-24, had a lead going into the fourth quarter. And man, did we just screw it up with some just terrible turnovers and man, our offense really let us down this week. Like we always do, we're going to kind of recap the game we just played against Auburn, and then we're going to talk a good chunk of the show about the Mississippi State game that is upcoming, and maybe our one and only shot to win an SEC game this season at home against Mississippi State this Saturday. So let's start off with the Auburn game. Kind of give you a little bit of a recap. I like to go through the offense and the defense, just talk about how each side of the football played, kind of give a grade to each side. And this is one of the rare times I think the defense probably earned a better grade than the offense. So let's start with the offensive side of the football. I gave this grade a D. I like to give some positive and some negatives. This is going to be primarily negative. But on the positive side, we had 3+ receivers with 60+ receiving yards. Rohan Jones got involved with 3 just massive chunk plays. This dude continues to somehow hold on to this receiving yards per average, like an average yards per catch. He's got 12 catches for 408 yards. That's 34 yards a catch. As a tight end, like that, that's nuts. That's nuts as any type of receiver. But to still have 12 catches and over 400 yards, man, he's been killing it. He right now is our second leading receiver, and he has a little bit under 200 yards less than Omega Blake, who's our receiver one, and he has a quarter of the amount of catches. Blake's got 48 catches and Rohan Jones has 12. So that's crazy. Sharp and Blake were both on those as well. Sharp had a 63-yard output, 58 yards on one of those catches for a touchdown. And then Omega Blake, just tried and true, 6 catches, 60 yards. He continues to be Green's most targeted receiver. So one positive there. Another positive, only 2 punts. There's a reason why we only had 2 punts. One of those punts was blocked, which was really tough. But we really only did have 2 punts. Well, a lot of turnovers, a turnover on downs at least. So there's a reason for that. That's both a good stat to only have 2 punts, but we also didn't get to finish a lot of drives. So could have been more. But those are the positives, a lot of negatives incoming. 4 fourth quarter turnovers, 3 interceptions. Like no turnovers going into the fourth quarter, 4 of them in the fourth quarter, 3 of them committed by Taylor Green as interceptions, and then 1 fumble by Omega Blake. And then secondly, only 63 total rushing yards. So these 2 things were the biggest reasons our offense underperformed. It's the reason I'm giving them a grade of a D. But Mike Washington Jr., 15 or 12 carries, 41 yards, so less than 4 yards a carry, which is kind of that watermark. And then Taylor Green, man, 14 rushing yards. Now we only got 7 carries, so it's one of those. If you continue to run the football, right? We between those 2 guys, we had 19 carries. I feel like most games we have more than that, specifically Taylor Green. It's one of those that maybe if we continue to push that ball and run it, maybe we would have gotten more, but clearly it wasn't working too well. A total of 2.7 yards per carry as a team, so that's a real low stat. And ultimately 63 rushing yards can't get it done. But the turnovers were really, to me, the biggest thing. And not even because we weren't able to score more points, but it's really just because we gave Auburn chances to score. Like this was a game that clearly was going to be hard fought. 24-16 entering the fourth quarter. We just need to kind of maintain and continue to at least get a field goal or get just any points on the board, but also just keep them from scoring. So to have that pick, that first one was at 9:26 in the fourth quarter. So essentially in under 10 minutes, we got 4 turnovers. Throw the pick ultimately ends up being a touchdown. Then fumble on the next drive, Omega Blake. We're now losing going into that one. They get the ball, Arkansas territory, kick a field goal. Another interception, 4:38 mark. They get the ball, another field goal. And then literally the first play with the ball back, a minute 1. At this point, we didn't really felt like any shot to win. Anyway, already down 2 scores and another interception. So the offense was just really highlighted by 2 things: the lack of rushing yards and then the turnovers committed by Taylor Green. So you're not going to win football games, even against some of the worst teams in the SEC, with stuff like that. So offense gets a D. We switch over to the defense. C minus, right? I going into this week, I predicted 23-20. I still thought Auburn was going to win this football game, and that is what happened. But I had us giving up 23. We gave up 33. So you're like, oh, okay, you gave up more points than you anticipated. How are they still getting a C minus? And it's really because if you look at it, they really only gave up 25 or 26, somewhere in there. They gave up 18 points from field goals and then a one offensive touchdown. And so in the second half, I don't believe we even gave up a touchdown in the second half. They scored with 7:52 in the first quarter, that opening touchdown for them, and then we never gave up an offensive touchdown again. So, yeah, 6 field goals, that's 18 points, that's a lot of points, but we essentially gave up about the same amount of points that we scored. Also, granted, we had a defensive touchdown, which was kinda shocking, and that's kinda what gets baked in here as well to still have a C minus, like, a defensive touchdown is really something, that helped us and boosted us a lot, prolonged the inevitable, but, I really was impressed by this defense to some degree. 33 points, I think, is a little misleading. On the positive side, only one touchdown allowed. Like I said, it was in the first quarter too, and we had one defensive touchdown forced, which is a big play by Kenai Walker, who's got to be one of the best players on our defense this season. Another note on the positive side, allowed 31% third down conversion rate. So I feel like we've been around 50 as an offense, Arkansas personally, and so Auburn to keep them around 31%, like it really wasn't about Auburn's offense in this game. It was the fact that we couldn't move the ball offensively uh, in the second half to some extent, but also those timely turnovers in the fourth quarter that ultimately allowed us to lose this football game. So negatives, this is pretty self-explanatory, but we allowed 230 rushing yards. If you check the box score scout in this game, 153 yards by Jeremiah Cobb, big game for him. I mentioned the field goals. I think that obviously, like anybody would say, is better than a touchdown. But we gave up scores on 8 of the 9 possessions, excluding the end of half possession. So at the very end when they needed out, and then also right before the first half. So excluding those 2 possessions, they scored 8 out of those 9 possessions. 6 of those were field goals. Uh, so it's tough, but I really thought that we had a fairly decent defensive game. That's why it's C minus. I think this unit outperformed the offense, which is something haven't really think I got the chance to say this season. So you got to give credit where credit is due. Quincy Rhodes Jr. played another phenomenal game, 2 sacks in this game. He's up to 7 on the season. Kenai Walker, pick 6. These 2 guys continue to be really the 2 main players on our defensive side of the football. Sorey didn't have a terrible game. Like the run defense was not great, like I mentioned, but we also didn't really have anybody out there. Cam Ball doesn't play this game. Danny Saley, Justice Boone, even was playing a ton of defensive tackle. So this is a spot where, yes, you got to grade properly where this defensive line didn't show up, but at the same time, you got to understand the fact that they were down a lot of bodies, and Cam Ball being one of your most senior players being out for this game. You knew that was going to happen. You knew this run defense was going to struggle. It did. But where I wasn't expecting was the turnovers that we talked about, finally getting those. And then we still had 3 sacks in this game. 2 of them go to Quincy Rhodes Jr., and then a sack by Xavier Sorey Jr. So proud of the production they put up in this game. Like I said, that interception was really, really helpful at the end of the half to give us that boost going into the half. And I was overall just not as disappointed with how our defense played. So that's why I wanted to give them a C minus and honor that. So that was the Auburn game. Another brutal loss in this one. I really think if we would have won that football game, I mentioned this last week, that Hugh Freeze would have been fired come Sunday or Monday. And they won that football game and he still got a job. So we'll see if that remains the case for them throughout the rest of the season. But it really was a spot where I thought we could leave him without a job after this game. And ultimately, we weren't able to do that. And we fell short once again, still being us, Kentucky, and then the opponent we're about to play going into this weekend, the Mississippi State Bulldogs that are winless in the SEC. So we're going to talk about it in just a second.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the voice of college football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the voice of college football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.
All right. As I mentioned, this weekend we are facing the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Going into this game, neither of us have won an SEC football game. And so just like last week, this is an opportunity for one of those teams to complete that task. And we're going to be breaking down the offensive defensive side of the football. We talk about Arkansas on here all the time. So giving a spot to highlight the team that we're going to be playing against, breaking down both sides of the football for them. So on the offensive side of the football, a little bit about Mississippi State. This is a team right now that's 4-4. Winless in the SEC, as I mentioned. But right now, Blake Shapen's averaging about 250 yards per game, 247 to be exact as an offense, passing the football. They've got two 450-plus yard rushers. That's Davon Booth. That's Fluff Bothwell. Fluff Bothwell, the guy, a transfer in from South Alabama, averaging about a yard more per carry than Booth. So Booth's the guy who gets the ball more often. But they're also like Auburn to where they're averaging a ton of sacks allowed. So right now, averaging about 3.3 sacks allowed per game. So this is another opportunity. We got 3 sacks last week. Can we continue to build on that and have a productive season or a productive game on the defensive line this week? Some guys to know on the offensive side of the football for them. I mentioned a lot of these guys already, but number 2, the quarterback Blake Shapen, transferring from Baylor 2 years ago. So he was the starter last year, got hurt, came back this year, starter again. He's had a pretty productive season. He's a fairly dual threat quarterback, not one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, but still a manageable player and a veteran in the SEC. The running back I mentioned, number 6, Davon Booth. He's a guy that can kind of do both. He's got 469 rushing yards, over 100 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown as well. 7 total touchdowns, over around 600 total yards this season. So he's a dual threat guy, can catch it out of the backfield, but also can run the ball really well. And then their leading receiver in yards and touchdowns, Brennan Thompson, a transfer in from Oklahoma, number 0 for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So those are 3 guys to watch offensively. Switching over to the defensive side to get to know them a little bit there. They're averaging actually about less than 2 sacks per game. So I was wondering if there was a team that was averaging less sacks than we were. They've got 15 sacks on the season, and we've actually gotten 14. So these may be the 2 lowest sack teams in the SEC, but they're averaging a little under 2 per game. They're allowing about 152 rushing yards. So we're going to talk about some important hogs for this weekend, but the running game is going to be really involved for those names. And then where they do things well is on the defensive side of the football in the backfield. And that includes 11 interceptions. They've also got 3 fumbles forced. So their secondary is pretty good. In fact, all the names that I've got for us to know, the top 3 names are all actually defensive backs. And so that starts off with number 13. All these are actually not even just defensive backs, but safeties. Number 13, Jaron Manning, one of their leading tacklers, if not their leading tackler on this defense. Isaac Smith, who was an all-SEC guy last year, number 2, also a safety. And then a guy who's kind of broken out this season, leads Mississippi State in interceptions with 3, Brylan Lanier. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. But those are the 3 guys that are kind of leading this defense right now, all in the defensive backfield, which is their strong suit. So that's a little bit about the offense and the defense for Mississippi State this week. Couple of game notes just from a high level. I've kind of mentioned it now several times, but neither team has won an SEC game this year. Both are winless in the SEC, but also not even that. No team has even won since September. So for the Bulldogs, it was September 20th against Northern Illinois, and they actually had won 3 games prior to that, so they were undefeated to start the season. They're on 4 straight losses. For the Hogs, it's 6 straight losses, and we haven't won a game since September 6th. So I think Labor Day may have came before uh, a Hogs win, so that's tough. But hopefully this weekend we can settle that. Last six matchups between Mississippi State, we've actually split. The home teams actually lost both of the last two matchups. We beat Mississippi State in Starkville last year, and then the year before, everybody remembers 7-3 loss at home, which was an ugly game to attend. But if we pull that scope out and go last 15 matchups, Mississippi State's actually beaten us 9 of those 15 times. So I was looking back, doing a little history for this game, and I was kind of surprised to see that in those last 15, that they've actually outdone us. Now that includes several different quarterbacks like Nick Fitzgerald, um, Dak Prescott, of course. So some of those guys had success over us. For some reason, I thought that we've had a better last 15 than they have, but clearly not. But that's a lot about this Mississippi State football team. They had a big win against Arizona State earlier in the season, but these are two teams that are just absolutely begging for a win this weekend, and we'll see who ultimately gets it. To switch it back to the Hogs, I wanted to mention two guys that we really wanted to talk about on the offensive side of the football and two guys on the defensive side of the football. For the offensive side, these are guys that I really think are going to make an impact and really be the guys for this weekend. There's the names that anybody knows. It's Mike Washington Jr. and it's Omega Blake. Washington didn't have a great game this past weekend against Auburn. Auburn's run defense really showed up, but I think he can have an important game for us against Mississippi State. Like I mentioned, they give up over 150 yards per game on the ground in total offense. So I think Mike Washington's going to be a recipient of that. Look for him to flirt around that 100 yards this weekend. And then Omega Blake, who's been the most consistent player on the offensive side of the football, and Taylor Green's number one option. He's going to have a good game this weekend. I would expect 5+ catches on 50+ receiving yards. He'll be really impactful just for Green to check down to make some big plays and have some timely third down receptions. On the defensive side of the football, probably the two best defenders on our team as well. I'm not picking anybody too niche here for you. Defensive end Quincy Rhodes Jr. and cornerback Kenai Walker. These two guys are going to have to be instrumental in us to actually hold on and win a football game in the SEC. Rhodes had 2 sacks this past game, and Kenai Walker had a pick 6, and we still couldn't win a football game. So they're going to have to go above and beyond. That includes a potential pick 6 again, maybe a strip sack. It's going to have to really call on these two guys to show up defensively. They did that this past weekend. So let's see if we can continue to do that. And maybe the offense can be on our side this weekend and really propel us to a victory against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. All right. Each week I give my personal prediction just to give you a look back on how I've done this season. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, I picked all the games. And so I've kind of made some tough decisions on if I wanted to change those picks. Some of them I have, but the first 2 weeks I originally picked obviously us against Alabama A&M and Arkansas State, and I held on to those predictions and I was correct. The third game of the season we were facing Ole Miss. Prior to the season, I picked us to lose to them. Right before that game, I picked us to win. We ultimately lost like I had originally predicted. Then we faced Memphis. I picked us to win that game in the beginning of the season, and even right before the game, we lost that one. That was a tough loss. Notre Dame, thought we were going to lose beginning of season, and right before it, we did. Tennessee, same way, we did. A&M, I picked us at the beginning of the season to win that football game. Didn't know A&M was going to be the 4th team in the country when we played them, and I held on to that pick. I decided to stay 10 toes down and go for that, and we ultimately lost by field goal. So was not right there. But Auburn, I didn't make that same mistake. I picked prior to the season that we were going to lose this football game. I picked prior to the game that we were going to lose, and that's what ultimately happened. So it's not been too off of a year. If you go off my original prediction this season, started off 2-0 or 3-0 actually. Was wrong about the Memphis game, right about the next two, so it's 5-1. But I'm 6-2, I guess, on my picks. Arkansas's 2-6. I'm 6-2 on my preseason picks. We're going to go right back to a preseason pick again this week. The Hogs are favored by 4.5. Over/unders just under 70 at 67.5. They're expecting points in this football game. I think it's going to be around there. I've got a 34-27 game, and like I did at the beginning of the season, I'm going to take the Arkansas Razorbacks to win their first SEC game this season. Like, this is Mississippi State's winless in the SEC. Auburn was last week. But this is the spot. If you can't win this game, I don't know how you're going to win a game the rest of the year. So do we go 3-9 with a win against Mississippi State? We're going to find out this weekend. Some of the reasons I wanted to give to win, none of them are really analytical or anything about on the football field, just some notes. Bobby Petrino's last chance to get the job. I think really his job was ended after this Auburn loss. The first two losses, Tennessee, A&M, ranked teams. One of them on the road, 3-point game. One of them at home. One of the best teams in the country at home almost wins that game. But when you lose at home to Auburn, who hadn't won a game in the SEC, your name's out of the hat. But if I'm Petrino and I'm in his head, I go, if I win out, which of course that sounds silly to even say because it's not going to happen. I think he still has a shot at the job. I still think that if he wins 4 straight, he can do that. Now, do I think that happens? No. But if you look at this schedule right now, one that looked really brutal before starts off with Mississippi State, a win this weekend, at LSU, who just fired their coach, at Texas, who's been very underperforming, 20th in the country right now, but as high as number 1 this season. And then Missouri at home. And Missouri at home, just last week of the season, you got a momentum of 3 wins, which, like I said, probably won't happen, but let's just play this hypothetical out. You go there, it's a ranked team right now, 19th in the country, but they may not be by the time we play them. And so for 3 of these games, potentially to be against unranked teams, and even Texas could be at this point, they're 20th in the nation, so they're not holding on to anything. Um, he's got to say in his head, if I'm Petrino and I want this Arkansas job, I still have a shot. And if you can't win this one, you've got 0 shot after that. Like he actually probably has 0 shot after the loss to Auburn. But this spot, I think if I'm Petrino and I'm in his head, I think I could kind of convince myself that maybe if I win 4 and it starts with this weekend, I could still have a shot at this job. So lastly, too, I mentioned it earlier, in those last 6 matchups, the home teams lost the last 2. The 7-3 loss at home in 2023 is just really embarrassing. So for the guys on that team, Cam Ball, man, who else even was on that football team in 2023? Not a lot of guys. Cam Ball is one of them, though. And so in 2023, losing that game at home, this is a spot to redeem yourself. So 7-3 was really ugly. No fan was happy with that game. So can we get a redemption game here? I'm thinking so. I think we win 34-27. I don't feel confident in it. I haven't predicted a correct win since the Arkansas State game, so it doesn't feel likely. But you never know. Maybe we have a shot here. So I'm picking the Hogs 34-27 to beat the Mississippi State Bulldogs. All right, last but not least, just a plug for the show. Go over to vocfb.com/shop. Once you go there, there's a team drop down. Arkansas is one of the first teams on there. It's in alphabetical order, so easy to find. Got a lot of different merchandise there. If you're looking for a way to support the show, this is the perfect way to do it. And that's vocfb.com/shop. Lastly, as Ticker says, please like, share, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and tune into Arkansas at the Voice of College Football. We will have live shows each week, Mondays. They're going to be around 5:30. But I also just realized that the ticker does not even say Arkansas at all. It's talking about Texas, so that really helps absolutely nobody. Now, like the ticker says, please like, share, subscribe. Tune in to Arkansas The Voice of College Football. We've got shows 5:30 each Monday. It's been 4:30 the last couple weeks, but our next live show is going to be Monday. No live show recapping the Mississippi State game. There hasn't been one recently. I like those Mondays to have an opportunity to talk about the game before and the game after. So we're leaving it till Monday. But that week, this upcoming Monday, we're going to be recapping what's hopefully our first SEC win. Said it last week. I'll say it again. Maybe it can be against Mississippi State. And then we're going to be going into a bye week. So I'll probably put something in there, maybe talk about how we've done this season, just look at some guys. I haven't decided yet, but we'll have something for you. But maybe we can get a win this weekend. Maybe I can have a correct prediction on a victory for the first time since early September. So we'll see if it happens. But like always, God bless.